a rough game last night, but I'll take 2 of 3 heading into December. Oh, and by the way, Payton Pritchard is unguardable. What's up, everyone, and welcome in to your Celtics source on this Sunday evening. The Boston Celtics beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 117-115, a wire-to-wire victory. Yes, it got tight down the stretch, but in the end, the Celtics, closed out the game, played well enough in crunch time to secure their 11th win of the season, stay 2 games above 500, and more importantly, Payton Pritchard just put on a show for us tonight. And I think that we have to begin the show there because there are lots of little things that definitely impacted this game as well. But the star of the game is by far Payton Pritchard, the driving engine of this win to beat a Cleveland Cavaliers team that is a pretty solid one that is contending for a championship, one that is a top team in the Eastern Conference, if not the NBA. And Payton Pritchard basically outdueled Donovan Mitchell for the entire night. Jaylen Brown, I wouldn't say it wasn't his night, right? He definitely had a rough game scoring. Unfortunately, he had a rough game last night, which cost them the loss, and he sort of backs that up with another dud, at least offensively. But in this game, it didn't matter because Payton Pritchard was able to pick up the slack. And that's something that we've been looking for the entire season. Right? Can someone else step up and help out Jaylen Brown? On some nights, it has to be Jaylen Brown right? Jaylen Brown last night was brilliant, but the didn't show up. Who else showed up to help Jaylen Brown down the stretch? In this game, it was more of a Jaylen Brown or. Jaylen Brown, it's one of those games where had Donovan Mitchell been playing well, yeah, they wouldn't have lost this game because you would have needed Jaylen Brown and someone. But in this game, you just needed Jaylen Brown or someone. And that or was by far and away Payton Pritchard. Maybe Payton Pritchard's second best game of his career after that, 43-point performance that he had against the Trailblazers last year. That game where both Derek White and Payton Pritchard went off for 40. The Mike Tirico game. But as for Payton Pritchard in this game, he plays 31 minutes, but he scores 42 points on 15 of 22 shooting. Just extremely efficient from really inside the paint with layups, a couple backdoor dunks layups, right? He doesn't dunk, obviously. We've been looking for him to dunk on an open breakaway. But the dunker spot was where he was playing a lot of the time when he wasn't out on the 3-point line. And I'll talk about his 3-point shooting in just a second. But I thought it was great to see your smallest guy on the court play down in the low dunker spot and sort of pick up a smaller guy because of him playing in that dunker spot, which then brought Evan Mobley away from the paint, allowing other guys to get involved if it wasn't Payton Pritchard. But Payton Pritchard was also able to dribble his way into the paint, pump fake, go back under, and score on the other side of the basket. Not really in the air, but he was able to get his defender to sort of jump or sort of get out of position, and then he was able to get back up and under. Jordan Walsh also had a couple of those dunks, which we'll talk about in just a second. Jordan Walsh also had a career game, obviously, a lot less extreme than Payton Pritchard's game, but still a great step, jump step up for Jordan Walsh in his career. But as for Payton Pritchard, he's known for his three-point shooting, obviously, and in this game, 6 of 11. So what was it, 55%, something like that. So just when you shoot 55% from three and you're taking and making 6 threes, yeah, you're gonna be able to pick up the slack for anyone else on the court that night, right? We've been looking for someone to find a way to, I wouldn't say find a way, but someone to, as I said on the top of the show, to make a couple threes. Derek White, he sat out this game with a hamstring or something? Calf tightness or something that or calf contusion, I think is what it was. And then obviously Keita sitting out on the back-to-back as he sort of rests and heals up from that ankle strain that he had against the Magic last Sunday. So you're looking for, Derek White obviously is struggling tremendously. But he is providing, that defense and that reliability in terms of ball movement and handling, facilitating the offense. Something that Payton Pritchard, has done more of lately as he's been moved onto the ball more. But that being said, Payton Pritchard is playing 31 minutes a night without Derek White because you need a guard out there to handle the game. And so he's going to be attacked defensively. But I thought he did a good job of, fighting bigger offensive players on the Cavs side, right? Trying to stay involved, not picking up cheap fouls, which then allowed him to stay on the court. Now, he did have a couple fouls on that, early in the early in the second quarter, which did keep him off the court for a bit. They went with Anfernee Simons, who was able to hold his own offensively and be that driving force, along with 4 other bench guys that are not there for scoring. So it was great to see Simons, which, we can talk about Simons in a bit. But staying on the Payton Pritchard conversation, Payton Pritchard was then able in that second half to, relax a little bit and not pick up those sloppy fouls, allowing him just to continue on the offensive tear that he was already on. I do want to talk about Simons, Jordan Walsh. Xavier Tillman actually had a big role in this game, with Keita obviously being out and Garza being a coach's decision to not play, which I think made perfect sense given that he was not. Neither is Tillman great offensively, but both of them, at least Tillman can hold his own defensively and can get out there on the perimeter and switch against a guy like Evan Mobley, right? The Celtics played small a lot, which, it seems surprising when you're going up against a team that is as tall as the Cavs are. But that being said, Jared Allen didn't play, so you're playing only against one setter, not two, and therefore are able to, put Tillman out there, who was able to guard Evan Mobley very well in this game, keep him from being a dominant force offensively, really shut down all 3 of the Cavs' best players. Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley still had, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley still had 20-plus points. Evan Mobley had 27 points. But you limit Donovan Mitchell to just 18 points on 7 of 16. You've done your job defensively. Now it's just up to the offense, which Payton Pritchard handled for the most part. We didn't talk a lot about Jaylen Brown early on. I do want to say that, obviously with the star player and all the attention on you, he's going to have ups and downs. He is less consistent, I would say, than some of the other star players in this league. And then that's also partly because of the way the Celtics play. Their play style is more about getting other guys involved and not having a quote-unquote ball-dominant guard. Um, Obviously, Jaylen Brown is not your typical guard. He's more of a forward who is playing guard at the moment with Jason Tatum out, with Jrue Holiday not here anymore. Now, Jason Tatum isn't your typical guard either, but he is that sort of point forward, typical point forward that we're seeing more and more of in the NBA. But as for Jaylen Brown, right, the scoring wasn't there, but he did make up for it on the defensive end with 12 rebounds, and obviously the 11 assists, right? So a triple-double for Jaylen Brown. I think Jaylen Brown's first triple-double of the season. He reaches 12,000 career points, so a nice milestone for him in a season where he is that main guy. I think he'll probably get to at least 13,000, maybe even more this season, which is great to see for a guy that, has been that second option for most of his career. But, he did have 6 turnovers. That's not great. You would like to see him get back down to that 1 or 2 turnover. Even 3 is okay when he's scoring 41 points like he did last night. But by no means a terrible game from him, because what he lacked in the shooting, he made up in the rebounding, which, is one of those stats that often we think of as just being, it's not a telltale sign of how good their game was, because rebounding is hit or miss depending on what position you play, where you are positionally, and then overall, our team's making their shots or not. But on this team, with the way that they struggle defensively on the boards, right, shooting 66, or rebounding at a 66 percentage, worst in the league. Any rebound you can get is so huge for this team, especially with the limited offense that they get on most nights. So I really want to count. When I look at assists and rebounding on this team, scoring obviously comes first, but I think rebounding on this team, I'm going to put slightly higher than the assists in playmaking. Yes, it's great to see him getting, him spreading the ball around and making plays for others. But with this team and how small and, I wouldn't say they're physical, but, just their struggles that they have going up against 7-footers, with only one 7-footer on this team who can actually play basketball in Neemias Queta, because Luka Garza is toast out there right now. But let's move on to Jordan Walsh, and then I will talk about, I know we did talk about Xavier Tillman briefly, but I do want to quickly talk a little bit more about him. He's been a coach's decision of did not play for the last 3 weeks, which I've said this before. I know Joe Mazzulla likes to, keep everyone honest by not telling them who's going to play tonight, calling random guys off the bench, right? He called Hugo Gonzalez in that fourth quarter for like 1 or 2 minutes just to get a stop after not playing at all. But that being said, you don't want your players to be cold when they're coming in, because especially offensively, right? Defensively, you can come in and play, but if you're cold offensively, sitting on the bench for an entire game, and then you come in the fourth quarter, or even, as in the case of Xavier Tillman, it's a little bit better because he started and he had the chance to warm up right before playing. But, you don't want a guy to be sitting on the bench for 4 weeks and then not getting any game reps and then just come in and play all of a sudden, right? Who knows how far in advance Joe Mazzulla, or at least today or last night, Joe Mazzulla told Xavier Tillman he was going to play. So just, credit to Xavier Tillman for coming in and, making an impact. His offensive numbers, again, right, he's not in there for offense, so, just 9 points, 4 of 9 shooting. He did a great job cleaning up on some missed shots from the Celtics early on. But he's in there defensively. And, when I say, right, he did a great job defensively, take it with a grain of salt. Evan Mobley did score 27. but he didn't stay on Evan Mobley for the entire game. They did a lot of switching, which is what really Xavier Tillman is in there above a guy like Luka Garza for his ability to switch on to guards, forwards, and even centers. So great job from Xavier Tillman to just step in there and make winning plays. All right, we'll talk about Jordan Walsh, and then, I don't know if there's anyone else we have to talk about in this game. I thought Joe Mazzulla did a much better job of his rotation and his substitutions in this game. It didn't look great last night in that fourth quarter, especially the way he handled Brown and Pritchard. And, a much better job from Joe Mazzulla in this game. Actually, before we talk about Jordan Walsh, let me quickly address Anfernee Simons. A game where, he has these games where he'll show you why he is a top scorer in the NBA, like this game where he has 18 points in 27 minutes. Not great from 3, 2 of 7, but 8 of 14 overall, so pretty efficient. He carried the bench load in this game tremendously. Joe Mazzulla put 4 defensive players, predominantly defensive players out there. Jordan Walsh is a little bit of a swing, but he put a Josh Minot out there, a Xavier Tillman with him, and asked Anfernee Simons to carry an offensive team that has had its struggles offensively, including himself. So I want to give a huge shout out to Anfernee Simons in this game for his ability to go in, play 27 minutes a night with mostly a deep bench unit, and keep this team afloat. I believe on the night he ended up being I think his net rating was, if I'm not mistaken, a -7. That doesn't, when it's all said and done, like, Donovan Mitchell did hit 4 threes, late in this game to make this game really close. In fact, actually, they had a 5-point lead or something, and then Donovan Mitchell hit some deep, threes that superstars in this league make in the crunch time, very similar to shots like Anthony Edwards' shots last night. So that's how, Jordan Walsh's net rating did come down as he was out there in that closing minutes. But, that being said, credit to Anfernee Simons for Joe Mazzulla even trusting him to be out there in crunch time and hold up defensively. So just a great game from Anfernee Simons. He has had ups and downs all season, as I said before, but I think he's taking the right steps forward. He is, out there to be a scorer, and as that bench, unit, or as that main guy on the bench unit, I think he can have a great 6th Man of the Year campaign. Just, holding up defensively and then scoring the ball at will offensively. Now, it does get a little ISO-centric with him sometimes, but for the most part, he is able to put the ball in the basket, so it doesn't really matter. But Jordan Walsh, right? 14 points. I think that's a career high for him. Plays 38 minutes. That is for sure a career high. 5 of 6 from the free throw line, 1 of 3 from 3, 4 of 7 overall. So he made the shots when he needed to. Did have a couple of turnovers, but he did have a block, 2 steals, had a great play where he ripped the ball away from Evan Mobley and got a foul. So his hustle, his energy, he was just nails guarding Donovan Mitchell for the entire game, right? You hold Donovan Mitchell to 18 points, you've had a fantastic job defensively. And 18, probably 9 of those points did come in the last 2 minutes of the game where he hit some tough threes to keep this game within manageable distance, right? I think he had a 3 when there was a 5-point game. He had a 3 when it was a 7-point game. So keeping this game, within arm's reach. That's really where Donovan Mitchell got most of his points. So 9 points through 3.5 quarters, maybe even more. Just a fantastic job from Jordan Walsh, who continues to cement his place in the starting lineup, and shows you why, if he's going to be, playing this well offensively, and obviously he's bringing the defense every night, and he's not fouling, he's making smart decisions. Jordan Walsh, after being sort of cast aside these last couple of seasons, is maybe showing you that he can be a top player, a big role player with a giant role in upcoming championship seasons. All right, but we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, the Celtics win 117-115. They stay 2 games above 500 at, I believe, 11-9. They have a tough schedule coming up, and actually we're going to do a podcast episode tomorrow afternoon. I believe around 3 p.m. is where I have it scheduled. Talking about this game, talking about these last couple of games, and then focusing on this tough schedule coming up where they play the Knicks. They have the Lakers in there. They play the Hawks, I believe, coming up as well. They do have the Wizards in there, but they do play Toronto, Milwaukee as well. They play Detroit again, so just a tough stretch heading into Christmas time before it does weaken up a little bit with games against the Pacers, Trailblazers, Jazz. So a nice, easy Christmas to New Year's stretch, but they got to get through this gauntlet of, Eastern and Western Conference teams that is going to define their season. But, until next time, go Celtics.